Hello guys, welcome to the episode 32 of this playlist on creating the web API and consuming it with MVC in ASP.NET Core 3.1. I shall walk you through the creating of AddCustomer Action Methods, get and post today for the customer controller. These episodes in the code base are built-in continuation from the previous ones, hence I request you to go through them before coming to this one. I'll give you the promotional link to my premium Udemy courses if you put your constructive and positive comments on these videos and write to me personally as a comment. I also request you to subscribe to the channel and share it. And let's see what we are going to do today. So by the end of this lecture, we shall be able to create the add customer HTTP GET action method to return a view for adding a customer, and an add as customer HTTP post action method which can add or insert the customer details to the database. So let's flip over to Visual Studio. Now I have taken out my project MVC Client, so Web API consume, and I'll make a HTTP GET verb. HTTP GET, and it will be a public view result type, and I will call this add customer action method. Which, what do you expect this to return? This view result will be a simple form. It will be returning a form which is not filled, it just has the form field, so it will just return a plain view, right? So why it is saying this squiggly line? Return. So I have omitted the return, that's why it was not getting a view returned. Okay, so return view. So next is the same add customer method with customer being entered as a parameter to this method, and it will be a form which is posted to the server. So this will be HTTP post verb, it will be decorated with. So HTTP post, and this time it will be returning a public, it will be returning an async task on action result, and this will again be called add customer. And it will accept a customer as a parameter, customer type. And if you remember, if you have gone through my lecture on get customer and get customer by ID, both these methods, action methods, had the same name, only to make a common view which returns the customer form and which could be posted back with the ID to get the customer filtered with the ID, to get the particular specific customer with the ID, if the ID exists. Okay. So similarly, for availing just one form, for saving us posting to another form to get add a customer, we are doing this. Okay, it's to use the same page. Right, so we'll have to return a task of action result. So let's write here, it will be starting with if model state dot model state dot is valid. I'll tell you that in a moment. What is model state dot is valid property? If model state is valid. So what is model state? So model state is the it gets the Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC.Model state dictionary that contains the state of the model and the model binding validation. Model binding validation means model validation, or it's the server-side validation, which we are gradually adding, which you have started with by doing the validation attributes in the previous lecture with system.componentModel.data annotation. So now, once the server-side validation is fully in place, it will create a model state dictionary, and if the model state is valid, then do this. Okay. Now, briefly explaining, the model state represents errors that come from two subsystems, the model binding and model validations. Errors that originate from model binding are generally data conversion errors. For example, an X is entered in an integer field. And model validation occurs after model binding and reports errors. It reports errors, model validation, where data doesn't conform to the business rules. Like I said, if a character X is entered in the integer field, or for example, when a 0 is entered in a field that expects a range between 1 and 5. So both model binding and model validation occur before the execution of a controller action, or in Razor pages, it is a Razor handler, pages handler method. Okay, so for web apps, it is the app's responsibility to inspect model state dot is valid and react appropriately. Okay, so then this model state dot is valid is true. Is valid is a property that returns a model state dot is valid is a property that returns true if all the model properties are valid and returns false otherwise. Now then, if model state is valid, then create a using statement. var HTTP client, a new instance of an HTTP client, and then there is a type string content. So I'll come to it in a bit. So string content JSON convert dot serialize object. Serialize is the specific object to a JSON string. So JSON convert operating on the serialize object method, and this for this customer object, and then so I'll be using this overload. So this has got three overloads. The string content. So I'll be using this one, string content, and system.text.encoding, and then string media type. So encoding is encoding dot, now this one is actually, it uses system.text actually. Using this system.text namespace. So now it's fine. So UTF-8 encoding I will be using, and media type is application /JSON. So I have created a content of type string content. Okay, so it provides an HTTP content based on a string. So this is a JSON string. So I've serialized the customer object, the input to the this method, AddCustomer method, so that I have converted using the JSON convert dot serialize object method, and the encoding is of UTF type and media is application /JSON. All right. So next is our familiar piece of code using this one. I'll copy this one, this piece of code, and then change accordingly if required. Right. So our response is await on HTTP client.get async. Instead of ID over here, this will now be, the second parameter is content here. Okay, so this is the inner using statement. Now this is a familiar code, isn't it? So we get the response from the content, which is read, on which read as string async method is operated, and this response this will be a post async method, not a get, because we have HTTP post. Okay, so make it post async, and now it's all right. That squiggly line is gone. So I get a response from posting async to this URL on the web API, passing the content JSON string, which is formed over here, and get the response and store it in a string. Okay, and then convert this response, which is returned from the web API, by deserializing it to a customer object. Now, below this outer using statement, I will then return it. I'll get the view returned with the customer if the model state is valid. So if every validation is successful, the model validation, then return view customer, else return an empty view. Return view, return an empty view. All right. So that's all. We have created the AddCustomer controller action method, HTTP GET and the HTTP POST type, and in the next lecture we'll be adding the customer view. Okay, we'll get the AddCustomer view of CSS HTML page. Till then, bye.